Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Amati Auctions based in the UK, and we're going to have a look at one of their latest auctions, which is one of the affordable ones that they have. So they have a more specialist auction at times, and sometimes they have these affordable ones which have kind of cheaper things, things which need restoration, or maybe the provenance is unknown. So this is one of the lower auctions, similar to the Terezio T2 auctions. Whole load of violins, violas, cellos and other bits and pieces in this auction. I think there's about 250 lots, but there are quite a lot of books, so not so many. So we're just going to blitz through really and look at a few key things. We won't kind of go through everything in detail. This auction is finishing on the 27th of September. It's the 16th today. The catalogue just came up yesterday actually, so we're fresh to this. Bear in mind that this is a UK based auction, so shipping, import, export, CITES restrictions, etc. if you're trying to bid outside of the UK and getting something shipped. Buyer's premium 22%, what you pay on top of the final hammer price. Just to say, if you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing or like or commenting, because it really does help. So without further ado, let's just crack on with it. We won't really get an indication of what the bidding's like so far, because it's literally just been a day, but there we go, already we're up to £50. So a cello labelled Claude Puree there. You can see the photos are very nice and very clear. They also do condition reports here, so you can see that the top has a few closed cracks and a little bit near the button on the back there. Nothing too much to say about this particular one. Let's carry on, so we won't look at everything. Cello unlabelled, but why not? Let's have a look at this. Looks kind of nice enough. There's some information there, some open cracks in various places, so that's good to see that there's a condition report on that. Nice clear photos. Oh, they also have the 360 rotation thing here at Amati, which is pretty cool. Be nice to have that with the scroll, because I really do like to see the scrolls on instruments, but maybe they'll do that at some point in the future. We can only hope. Cello unlabelled. That looks fairly simple type of instrument. I would think that this is probably German, just looking at the F-hole placement, looking at the wood choice for the scroll. I think it's inked purfling as well on the back, so this is like, I would say that this is a low tier German instrument, but still cellos, an older cello, probably kind of early 19th century or something like that, so cellos are expensive, so potentially a good opportunity there. It's interesting. Cello labelled Mu Zibin Workshop here. Quite a wide-bodied instrument there, so it looks quite nicely made though. You know, some of the, don't write off some of the Chinese instruments. I wonder if this is some kind of Montagnana model or something like that. I don't know. It's something that's pretty big in any case, but looks nice enough. 20 bid at the moment. A cello unlabelled, right? Okay, this is a definite kind of amateur kind of thing. I mean, probably good for a folk session or something like that, but not the most interesting instrument. Cello unlabelled. This looks like your fairly standard trade instrument, so we don't need to get into that. Cello labelled Jakob Soram. Difficult to say with some of these things, probably inspection in person needed. Looks fairly standard to me. Cello labelled Muzabin Workshop, another kind of modern cello. Don't think we need to get into it too much. Not as interesting a model as the other one. Cello unlabelled. Once again, I think this is fairly standard looking. Cello unlabelled again. I said I wouldn't look at every lot, but it is quite tempting to look at everything. Half-size cello, Primavera, can definitely ignore that. Another half-size cello, go past that. Ignore that. And these quarter size, these are just budget things. Violin labelled Wolf Brothers. I'll look at this, but this is, you know, a better kind of German trade type instrument, I suppose. Not for me personally, but decent enough. This is an interesting violin. A violin labelled Charles, I think, is it Tweedle or Tweedale? Can't quite remember. Tweedale, there you go. A curious looking scroll and pretty weird crackler on the varnish there, big open crack. I like this further labelled. The instrument is covered in varnish equal to the best Cremonese in colour transparency and gem-like power. Okay. Not sure about that one, but it is curious enough. Let's actually have a look at the measurements here. 358 length of back. It's not so bad, but it is kind of interesting, that instrument, I have to say, in a way. Corners are a bit, so the edge work is a little bit big, I think, but otherwise. Finally labelled Phoebe. I think the Phoebe ones, I think these are just like really low level French instruments from what I remember, like really just churned out, but could be wrong. Dulcimer Fortis, that's a slightly better but still cheap French one. This is just going to be a trade violin. Another kind of trade violin there. Let's have a look at this one. I suspect this. Yeah, I mean this is it's got like a fancy label, but it does somewhat look like a kind of trade instrument to me. I mean, there's an interesting bit of kind of detailing here on the F holes there, which is slightly unusual. Maybe some of the corners F holes are a little bit wonky, but it's just not too exciting. Let's have a look at the measurements there. 358 as well. So violin labelled London 1832. Not really seeing a lot there. 7/8 violin unlabelled. Violin unlabelled, nothing too crazy on there. Violin unlabelled, sometimes good to just have a look at the back. No, nothing interesting there. Violin unlabelled. I think this might have a big crack on the back. No condition report on that one at the moment. Violin labelled Joseph Guarnerius. I'm sure this is probably just a trade violin, but kind of a better one. Looks nice enough. All these instruments need some kind of work doing to them, so you know they're not ready to go. This is just a super budget, cheap, probably Eastern European violin. Not much to see here either. Violin unlabelled. Yeah, there's probably another German instrument or kind of Czech border kind of thing. Once again, a lot of these things not super exciting, but not overall bad. I think it's fancy purfling on the back there, but just another standard instrument dressed up a bit. Maidstone, this is just a generic trade instrument. Violin inscribed Deracy Pierre Toulouse. It's got a fairly dark red varnish, not especially exciting. Violin labelled M.Th. May and Zune. Okay, no idea. Looks pretty bonkers from the kind of shape and edgework. I wonder how big this one is. 360 is fairly big. 3/4, we'll ignore that. Small violin, another one to ignore. Wow, violin unlabelled. This is some bonkers thing as well. Look at this, a real kind of amateur one. That will go with that cello earlier. They could start a little band. Violin unlabelled. This looks like some kind of modern horrible thing. Yep, definitely. Violin Maidstone, another trade violin. This looks fairly standard. You can kind of see almost straight away. Violin branded David Hoff. It's just a kind of probably late 19th century German type thing. Violin unlabelled. It's kind of a bit more interesting on the back. So it needs a bit of work done. Lots of things going on. Cheek patches, yeah, new inset wood everywhere. It's a bit of a project for someone, that one. Violin labelled Le Stentor d'Après. This looks like a fairly standard instrument there. Violin unlabelled. Don't think we've got anything too exciting here. Violin unlabelled once again. I think we're just well, fancy purfling on this one actually. But or fancy design, but nothing really of note, sadly. Another kind of generic one. Violin labelled Nicholas Galliano. Looks on the surface a bit more interesting, but some of the details are a little odd. Violin labelled Leopold Vidalm. It's kind of a nice instrument. Nice back. I wonder if there's something going on there. See what the condition report says. It seems alright. It's had a button repair. I don't think this is too bad. It's kind of interesting styling. It probably is some kind of late 18th or early 19th century violin, I would think. You see the neck graft is a bit poor there. Needs a bit of TLC. What's the length of back there? 352. Yeah, I mean it could be okay, that one. Violin labelled Edvard Kratz. I think someone's gone over that one with a bit of gold pen to jazz it up. Could be a restoration project for someone. Violin unlabelled, that's just generic stuff again. Violin labelled Joseph Klotz. I think we're just looking at another trade thing there. Nothing too exciting. Violin unlabelled. Looks like it's been messed around with a bit, but kind of semi-interesting violin. Violin labelled Nicholas Galliano. Nothing there. Another kind of generic thing there. Same with that one. Violin labelled Schuster. Nothing much going on here. Child's violin. No. Another trade thing. Violin labelled Georges Cohn. Looks like a kind of better trade or workshop violin. Violin inscribed JB Cerruti. Slightly more interesting. It's got a neck graft. Let's see what the length of the back is. 354. It's one of the more interesting violins that we've come across so far, but nothing too crazy so far. Violin labelled Emile Boulanger. Looks like, yeah, kind of standard, probably French workshopy violin. Violin labelled Anton Hertel. Nothing too exciting there. Violin labelled Mugino Gauche. Again, nothing too crazy there. Violin again, nothing crazy. Let's see, 3/4 size violin. This is an interesting violin. Violin labelled Aurelio Gonzalez. I think this is probably one of the nicest violins in this auction, I would say. Really quite nice back, and we can also see some, I think there's some pin marks in this violin. So quite an interesting one. No idea what it is, or if it's anything that's stated on it is correct. However, I just think it seems like quite a nice looking violin. Looks quite well made. So for me, this is probably the most interesting violin. Violin unlabelled here. Looks like a kind of German violin again, but quite a nice, interesting F-hole placement for this one. Be nice for kind of Baroque setup or something. Violin labelled F Barb. Kind of fancy figure on that one, but I don't think it's super exciting. Violin labelled Steiner. It's all pretty similar. Violin unlabelled. Not sure about that. Maybe kind of better workshop type violin. Violin labelled Joseph Guarnerius. 80 bid on this already. They like this. Interesting F-holes. Neck graft as well. Not so exciting to me, but obviously some people do like this. What's the length of the back? So it's branded L Galliard above the label, so maybe it's a French violin. Oh, and speaking of that, another violin labels use Galliard. The fancy back there. Violin unlabelled. Looks like a kind of German type thing. Violin labelled H. Clotel. Not so exciting. Violin labelled Thibaut. 90 on this as well. Very similar looking to the other one we saw actually. Kind of similar varnish. So not 100% sure. Violin unlabelled. That looks pretty standard fare there. Yeah. Another one that looks pretty samey. That looks like a kind of trade violin with a bit of a wacky outline. Let's see, we're stuck on the internet here. Right, violin unlabeled. This is a bit of a curious looking one, slightly odd. Interesting kind of varnishing back to it. It's kind of English type thing maybe. Violin unlabeled, it looks like another standard thing. 3/4 violin, pretty standard there. Violin labelled Henry Betts. Once again, nothing too exciting about that. Violin unlabeled. This looks kind of like a fairly maybe early 20th century or so trade-ish violin. 3/4 violin there, pretty standard. Violin labelled W.E. Rode. Interesting wood choice on that. Looks like maybe a kind of amateurish thing. Violin labelled repaired by W.H. Falconer. Looks like it's a bit heavy on the varnish. Was possibly a nice violin at some point. Looks like a lot of work there. Violin repaired by S.M. Briggs. Nothing too crazy on that one either. Violin supplied by W. Thompson. Hawks and Son, that's your standard thing. Looks pretty standard. That one as well, pretty normal. Once again, more standard stuff. That one as well. That one also. Let's carry on. Violin labelled Andres Guarnerius. I don't think there's anything too exciting about that one either. And this one, another one we can pass on. Same here, pretty standard. Actually, let's go back to that previous one. Violin labelled Jean-Baptiste Collin. Could just be a standard kind of budget French violin. Pretty standard trade violin there, and that one. Same with that one. And that one also. Same here. Violin unlabelled. I think we're just in the trade central again. Violin labelled Carlo Fisori. Okay. That's interesting. That seems to be, that's kind of similar. Wasn't there another Fisori before? Looks kind of similar to that. Curious. Okay. Violin labelled Peter Woodward. Okay, interesting. That's a curious looking amateur violin, I think. Half size violin. Violin unlabelled. This is kind of interesting just from the F-hole shape. Interesting kind of purfling on the top. Other bits of it look a little bit dubious, but it's kind of interesting in some ways. Violin unlabelled. This is, don't know, it has interesting parts to it, but not sure. This one has been messed about with, I think, and the F-holes. See what else we got here. 3/4, 3/4. Get rid of that. Standard here. Another standard thing. Labelled P. Collinet. It's just your standard stuff. Violin unlabelled. Nothing too crazy there. Same with that one. Wolf Brothers one again. Magini trade copy. Strad label. Violas here. So that was a skip to the violas, but it looks like a fairly standard trade viola. Same with this one here. That one definitely very low tier. Viola unlabelled. Once again, kind of a tradey viola with a kind of fancy, well, attempt at antiquing. We're on bows now. If we see anything super exciting, we will stop. Otherwise, we'll just carry on. Interesting. Silver mounted cello bow branded W.E. Hill and Sons. Interesting parts on this. It's had some new material there on the head. It's kind of curious. Interesting looking bow there. Spliced to head. Wonder if it could still be quite a nice bow, but you can see that something funny has gone on there, but might be usable bow. Nickel mounted cello bow there. Tomasa, silver mounted cello bow. Let's have a look at that. I think there'll be a couple of nice bows. The silver mounted, we'll skip past that. 3/4, quite a few cello bows actually. Nickel mounted, silver mounted cello bow there. Okay, viola bow, silver mounted violin bow. Let's just have a quick look at that. Not super exciting. Silver mounted Herman, a stick there. Bow branded Vincent. Okay, silver mounted violin bow. Okay, let's have a quick look at this one. Doesn't look super old. The silver mounted bow. Nickel mounted violin bow, branded JB Viome. Okay. Nickel mounted bow as well. Some additional things. Nickel mounted violin bow, branded Jazz Tubbs. Okay. Another bow there, Tomasa, Morzot. Nickel mounted bow. Let's have a quick look. I'm not seeing anything super exciting in that bow department, I must admit. That cello bow was interesting, but shame about the splice. Silver mounted violin bow, branded PRS. 30 bid on that. It's quite a nice looking bow, nice head. Interesting button there. Nickel mounted bow there. Silver mounted bow, nickel mounted violin bow, silver mounted violin bow again. Let's see if there's anything curious. Let's have a look at this one. Quite a lot of bows actually. It's got a collar on here. You see it's had a repair already, so that's going to really affect the value. And if they mention that here, you see that it's had a big crack, so they've removed some wood and put this reinforcement collar in for the button. But I mean, it's, you know, makes the bow work, but it looks a bit horrible, and it's definitely going to permanently affect the value substantially. So that's unfortunate repair. Though people would probably do it differently these days. I don't think bow repairer would do that kind of repair anymore. Silver mounted violin bow, branded Conrad Gotz. Interesting. Quite a cleanly cut bow there. I think the Germans are pretty good at that kind of stuff. More bows. Oh, really is quite a lot of bows. I think there's about 250 lots in this auction, and there are a lot of books, so I'm expecting that we're going to hit the books situation soon. We have a few more bows, it seems. Right, we're into bundles of bows here, so I think we're at the end. Interesting, a cello back, unlabelled. That's saying interesting. Looks like it has a massive crack on the back, but curious. Good for a wall hanging, I suppose. Cello back and ribs, unlabelled. Current bid £10. Looks like it's had some work done to it. I mean, you've got at least a fair bit of a cello there. Cello front, unlabelled. Looks varnish is pretty messed up on that. So yeah, it's curious. Cello, unlabelled. Bits and pieces. Looks like a kind of amateur thing. It's in parts. And looks like you get the neck and scroll as well. It's fairly standard. Cello scroll as well, so you know you could buy all the different bits there and make an instrument. Mandolin labelled suono tono. It's fairly standard Neapolitan mandolin there. Some books here. All the standard fare. I don't think we really need to look at any of these unless there's one which is super interesting or super rare. I think we are good. So there are quite a lot of books here. These look fairly standard. I don't think there's a portrait of Paganini there. I don't think there's anything super rare from what I could see. More books, yeah, really is quite a lot. Okay, more books. Varnish that. Okay, a print of a Del Gesù violin. Something a bit different. Number 39 of a limited edition of 500 prints, published in 1975 by W.E. Hill and Sons. Okay, interesting. More books. I think we must be coming towards the end so far, because we're getting close to 250 or so. Oh yeah, case there by Hill. Bow case, or bow cases. Possibly an MA Gorge case there. They're pretty good. That'll probably go for 500 quid or so. Thomas Smith. Blue cases, 4-pack violin case. Or bow case, 8-pack violin case. Okay, interesting. 4-pack violin case. Double violin case. 12-slot bow case. Okay, interesting. I think that is the end of the auction. So there you go. That has been the Amati affordable auction, which is ending on the 27th of September. Yeah, a few interesting things here and there. Nothing crazy, but nothing terrible. It's just, you know, probably just your pretty standard auction that you'd expect to see. So I'd be curious to see what happens in regards to prices. But anyway, that's the Amati auction. I'll put a link in the description as always. Check it out, see what you think. Feel free to comment if you've got any ideas on anything. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.